Hi, everyone. We're going to give folks a few minutes just to join, and then we're going to get started. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Anna Hutchinson. I'm a senior associate at Whiteboard Advisors, where I lead our early childhood care and education work. As you know, early childhood care and education has risen to the forefront of national conversations lately, so we thought it would be very timely to hold this conversation with some of the foremost experts in the field. Our conversation today will be moderated by Jackie Mader, a mom and former special education teacher who now covers early childhood education for the Hechinger Report. And now I'll turn it over to Jackie to introduce our panelists and get started.
Great, thanks so much, Anna. As Anna said, I'm Jackie Mader. I cover early childhood education at the Hechinger Report. And I'm really excited to be here today to talk about early ed with this fantastic group of panelists. So today we're going to delve into efforts to bolster the early childhood industry and also look at challenges that still persist. And a quick note before we begin, we are hoping to have some time for questions. So if you have any questions during the panel, feel free to submit those using the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and we will hopefully get to those at the end if time allows. So I'd like to start by having each panelist introduce themselves and share a bit about their work and the focus of their work. So Sarah, can we start with you?
Yeah, thanks, Jackie, and thanks to Whiteboard for having me, including me in this panel. My name is Sarah Rittling. I'm the executive director of the First 5 Years Fund, commonly known as FFYF, which is a federal-facing advocacy organization. Right now, we have the honor of working day in and day out with partners in this community and other communities as well, who are really pushing for this Congress and administration to pass the Build Back Better Act, particularly provisions in that bill that would address the affordability and access of childcare and pre-K for everyone in this country. So we're really pleased to be doing that work and excited about the prospect and opportunity of seeing it come to reality.
Great, thank you, Sarah. Rebecca, let's go over to you.
Hey, I'm Rebecca Berlin, and I'm the Chief Learning Officer at Start Early, formerly known as the Ounce of Prevention. Start Early is a not-for-profit that has been working for 40 years at the intersection of research, policy, and practice, as well as working at a local, state, and national level. And what that means is we are actually a Head Start grantee in the city of Chicago, provide Head Start services, early Head Start services, as well as home visiting services. We do work in the state of Illinois in policy and advocacy, as well as work nationally. So because of that, we feel like we have a really unique understanding of the challenges that we're facing. And we're laser focused on children, families, and professionals, prenatal through 5, and the local systems and national systems that we need to support them. And then I came to this work as a former Part C, Part B, and inclusion teacher, as well as a teacher preparation professor. So I'm always thinking about workforce, how to better support the workforce, how to better pay the workforce, how to better retain the workforce, and how to build a better workforce pipeline.
Great, thank you so much, Rebecca. And we'll definitely be going back to the workforce later in this conversation. It's so important. Safiyah, can we have you introduce yourself?
Hi, yes, thank you, Jackie, and thank you, Whiteboard Advisors, for hosting this conversation. My name is Sophia Jackson, and I serve in the role of Chief Strategy Officer at North Carolina Partnership for Children. We are one of a network of organizations across North Carolina. We have 75 local partnerships, organizations that are covering every county in North Carolina. And our network is a public-private partnership that has been thankfully funded for almost 30 years with North Carolina legislature dollars, as well as local county dollars and other private contributions from foundations. So our network together, we're really focused on a comprehensive services for young children that includes child outcomes and ensuring good quality childcare programs, home education and home visiting programs, and also a whole host of interventions that our local partnerships and network invest in that's promoting health outcomes at the community level, home and child level. So this comprehensive approach to birth to 5 is really what we are known for in North Carolina. Together, we really are focused on strengthening support for families, supporting literacy and health outcomes, and early care and education, which is what we're here to talk about. I come to the early care and education world supporting both the owners and operators who create learning spaces for children, but also the families. So I have a really deep passion for how we're engaging families, how we're supporting them through home visiting and parenting education while in childcare. And beyond our typical work, we have a number of community resilience programs and efforts that are really helping us live into system building across the state so that each county, each child really has an advocate working on their behalf. I'm so happy to be here with you all today.
Great, thank you so much, Safiyah. Jenna, last but not least, over to you.
Thank you. I'm Jenna Conway. I'm Virginia's Deputy Superintendent for Early Childhood Care and Education here at the Virginia Department of Education, where I lead our newly unified office that focuses on all care and education out of the home, birth to 5, as well as inclusive of after school and summer programming. Have been working very closely for the last few years to move over all elements of the block grant, Head Start, in addition to overseeing early childhood special education and all state-based pre-K. We're focused on increasing access and choice in our birth to 5 system, both for infant toddler as well as 3 and 4-year-olds. We've been working to strengthen quality, establishing Virginia's first non-optional measurement and improvement system for all publicly funded birth to 5 classrooms, with a real focus on interactions and curriculum. And in that work, getting the data down to the classroom level has led to a recent obsession with teacher turnover and compensation. I'm really trying to figure out how we can sustain high quality experiences, particularly in situations where we can't afford to require a bachelor's degree credential and yet want to provide experiences that maximize kids' learning and development. And previously, I led a similar effort in Louisiana, and so I'm one of the few folks who's been under Republican governor with Republican legislator, Democratic governor with a Republican legislature, a Democratic governor with a Republican legislature, a Democratic governor with a Democratic legislature, and now a Republican governor with a split legislature. So I think I've spent a lot of time thinking about the politics and how to make this a bipartisan issue.
That's great. Thank you, Jenna. We're so glad you're here. And again, we will definitely come back to you for workforce questions because I want to hear more about that. So I think before we get into, some of the progress that we're seeing both on a national level and local levels, it's important to kind of set the stage and remember, before the pandemic, what was the state of childcare? What were the biggest issues that you each were seeing before the pandemic? So I know this could be a huge question, but I'd love to just quickly hear from each of you to kind of set the stage as to where we were leading up to this. Rebecca, maybe starting with you.
Absolutely. As you said, we have to remember that the state of childcare was not great before the pandemic. It was, and it remains fragmented at all levels. What the pandemic actually did was point a flashlight, or maybe I could better say a strobe light on the cracks in the systems. Those cracks exist everywhere. We have a system that's fragmented for families. It is disconnected between prenatal services, infant and toddler services, preschool services, and K-3 services. And the system is difficult at best, or I would say impossible at worst, as I talk to my friends who are parents, particularly parents with disabilities, for families to navigate, to find the support they need. one of the things we see is that families with children with disabilities and delays actually have to forego full-time work and work as caseworkers, therapists, and advocates for their children. And then on top of everything, the wages that we pay teachers in childcare are terrible, and yet so many families cannot afford childcare. And then the last thing is I think about the pandemic. One of the pictures that always comes to mind is the fact that our childcare teachers continued to work to ensure that care was available for children, particularly children of frontline health workers and emergency services workers, where our K-12 teachers were working from home, which was needed to keep them safe. However, one of the things that I'll always remember in that in so many states, when vaccines became available, our childcare web teachers were at the back of the line behind the K-12 teachers. And so as I think about those difficulties in the system, it's really that we have taken a back seat to K-12 throughout the existence of prenatal through 5.
Thank you so much. Sarah, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so I'm going to remind everyone I'm coming at this question from a federal advocacy lens. And I think before the pandemic, there, things that Rebecca and I'm sure everybody else is going to highlight, it's too expensive. There's not enough of it. Like the basics, right? It's really hard to navigate. And I think from what we saw prior to the pandemic as well, picking up a little bit on, I'm going to pick up a little bit on where Jenna was headed politically, it was universally supported. A lot of great attention and support in a bipartisan way across the state. Some of the best talking points we've ever had is the amount of attention that states have given to the issue at various levels and purple, red, and blue alike. But we really hadn't gotten over the hurdle of awareness to a level where you're actually reading it in the paper every day. You're comfortable talking about it. It's such a personal thing for families. You're comfortable talking about the realities of what it means to have childcare. You had the business community engaged in an economic way in being able to actually articulate what this means. And then we all ended up in a pandemic where we saw what it looked like, and we lived it. And so it was a shared experience that has put us on a whole new level of engagement. And here we are on the brink of a really tremendous opportunity where hopefully the federal government's going to be supporting the issue in a way that allows those of you in Virginia or Illinois or North Carolina or wherever to pick up and do what you've been doing really well for a long time, but never had the amount of support that you needed in order to be able to do so. And as a country, I think we're going to have a whole new conversation about what that means. And so it's a huge opportunity. But yeah, I mean, I think before the pandemic, it was really expensive. There wasn't enough of it. and families needed help. So here we are.
Thank you. Safiyah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I naturally ditto to all of the structural changes that we've all been working, those of us that have worked in the field before the pandemic knew was a crisis. I would add that prior to the pandemic, we were also thinking about how do we define childcare, early care and education? Is it school-based? Is it center-based? Is it home-based? Those of us in the field, we recognize all those delivery systems, but how does the public recognize it? To what degree is it regulated? And I think all of these questions really got exacerbated even more when we started thinking about learning pods in the pandemic and how much that fits into childcare. So I'll say, in addition to the structural challenges of a mixed delivery system, we were also trying to figure out what is it, how do we define it in a way that the public can pick up on the narrative and really understand, like Rebecca said, we're, always tend to be second tier to K-12, and that's something that the public generally gets. But how do we define and get the public engaged? Second, we were thinking about the cost of care. How do we actually determine what is the cost of care? How do we fund this critical need in our society? And that's been further exacerbated when we see childcare homes and childcare businesses needing to account for the additional cost of running a childcare business in the pandemic. The last thing I would lift up is something that's near and dear to my heart, and that is the owners and operators of programs. Who are they? How do we lift them up and really understand, what their business challenges are so that they can create sustainable organizations and schools that provide a continuity of care? And I think all of these really important structural questions have just been exacerbated by the pandemic as we see more and more programs closing and try to keep their businesses open.
Thank you so much. Jenna, what are your thoughts? What were the biggest issues with early ed system pre-pandemic?
So, Jake, I'd say most have been covered. The one I think that I would highlight is our perpetual quest for quality and what that is and is not. And I think pre-pandemic, we were at a place of recognizing the importance of encouraging improvement, but potentially a little stuck on how to do that, right? And I think you've got things like linear benchmarks, which are a set of more input-based things, right, that are also out of reach for many of the owner and operators that we were just talking about. And you also have this sort of urgency around understanding what's happening down to the classroom level, right, in a way that we felt like many of our QRSs had not quite gotten at. And we put all of that on pause during the pandemic as we went into crisis mode. But it does strike me that this question, particularly as big things loom on the horizon and the potential resources, not only how do we sort of build out a public-private system that is affordable and accessible and addresses the diverse preferences of families, but how do you make sure that you have that return on investment or that you follow through on that commitment to families in terms of a place where their child can develop and thrive? And to me, that is one of the biggest issues as we come out of the most pronounced crisis of this. What does that cost of care look like? What is the accountability for that, right? What is the sort of most fair and equitable way to sort of support measurement and improvement at scale? Because if we can get these big investments, it's going to be immediately followed by a need to demonstrate impact. And that was a conversation I think was right pre-pandemic and got a little stuck, and now we're coming back to it.
Thank you so much. That's a great add. Well, so now I'd like to move into what progress we're seeing. So I'd love to hear from each of you, what is maybe the most promising investment, or what are the most promising investments we've seen, starting from a federal level, from the beginning of the pandemic. Sarah, I'd love to start with you for this question.
Thanks, Jackie. Happy to. Listen, the pandemic, which feels like a decade ago, but not that long ago, hit. And what we saw was support from every member of Congress and the White House at the time, looking for ways in which they could address what was becoming a reality in a crisis at the time, which was the need to stabilize the childcare industry. It was a very distinct relief effort focused on an immediate thing. And over the course of many months and a lot of time, and eventually once President Biden became president, we saw the rescue dollars go out. There were, we all know there were fits and starts, and that money's there. And I think there's a couple of important pieces of that. One, what I was saying before, which is the recognition broadly that this was something that needed to happen across all political walks of life, that it was a real need and it was affecting every aspect of our country and abilities. So I think that was significant. If it had ended there, we would have really put up a stink, because as I said, that was a very unique situation that was rooted in the early part of the pandemic. And so, as significant as it is and as meaningful as it is and how important those dollars are, what's really the opportunity going forward is how and the possibility of Build Back Better and the investments in childcare and pre-K and what they could do to change what we were all started off this conversation talking about, which were issues that existed prior to the pandemic. And so, here I am being very consistent in my support of this piece of legislation. But I think, the amount of attention and the work that went into at all levels, we kept track for a while, and we still do, of press hits. You cannot get away from there every day in America's newspapers. There is an article that highlights not just the realities that occurred during the pandemic, not just for families, for women of color, for providers, you name it, it's there in black and white every day in the paper. And so hopefully some of these really important rescue dollars have gone to address some of those specific to the pandemic, but we're now needing to really address them.
Thank you. Safiyah, I'd love to hear from you, your thoughts on the most promising federal investment, and especially if you, in working with providers on the ground, if you've heard of anything that's been especially impactful.
Yes. As Sarah mentioned, so thankful for these dollars. And at the same time, they were a Band-Aid. We know from our first question that they were a Band-Aid solution for systemic and structural issues. But so thankful that they are flowing. And it's evidence that even before the pandemic, we were ready for this kind of national investment because there was national conversation already underway about the importance of early childhood. I think the most important part of these investments is probably more than the money and the dollar itself. And I struggle to say that because we are in so much need of more dollars. But I would say when I think of these federal dollars, I think it's been really important to think about how they were structured and the state and local and even county autonomy that was given to be able to structure these dollars. And the way these federal dollars and national dollars flowed has just highlighted the importance of both state and local leaders to implement and match to meet the need that is present. This remains a theme, and I'm looking forward to continuing to be part of further dollars. But the second thing that I think has been so important is that these national dollars has gotten us on the front page. And Sarah, you said that twice today. I think that the narrative around caring for young children while their parents are at work is just such an important conversation that every voter in our country needs to think about and take with them to the booth. So I just appreciate just how much these national dollars has given us shine. And I believe it's so optimistic because once there's a public dialogue and narrative, we can then put pressure on those local and state leaders to continue those investments.
Thank you so much, Safiyah. Jenna, I would love to hear your thoughts, as a leader in your state, like what was the most helpful federal investment?
Absolutely. So, the sort of the size and the flexibility were enormous. I think, Virginia was able to run 4 rounds of cash assistance before we even got to the American Rescue Plan, right? And I think in doing that, we're able just to focus on getting relief to folks in need. And I think that, just into sort of recognition of that, I think it got people paying attention, and the media coverage is critically important. I still think, to Safiyah's point, like it was a Band-Aid or a drop in the bucket in terms of what is needed, right? And I'd give up, all of the sort of kudos that early childhood gets and the front page articles for a more sustained, not one time, but long-term commitment to funding the system. And I've been using that word a lot lately, right? Is that our existence is never questioned. Our existence is questioned in a way that K-12 is not, right? Through recession or not, right? Through highs and through lows. There's a commitment that K-12, as we saw, made to its teachers last year and took them out of harm's way, made to its students, right? And sort of to its parents when we sort of did things like hold harmless, even as thousands of kids under-enrolled. And we have never done that, never sort of made that commitment nor maintain that level of scale. And so that was like, on the one hand, you are so excited, right? Because we're so used to a scarcity mindset. On the other hand, you look at that next to the dollars going to K-12 and you're like, what the hell, right? I mean, it was this sort of this remarkable moment, right? Particularly, I will say, in a state where nearly all of those programs were open. I mean, I looked, for instance, our family day homes never, at any given point, not more than 20% were ever closed, right? On the front lines, actually opening up their homes. You can't have a more dangerous situation than that for these educators who are the least paid, right? And so if equity is about sort of looking at who is furthest from opportunity and resources and elevating them, we did the opposite, right? We sent the money to those who are most protected. And it's trying to figure out, how do you sort of both say, hey, look, we use these dollars effectively in this one-time place, but what we want is what K-12 got. What we want is a commitment to our educators. What we want is a commitment to our kids in the long time, while also, as we did with a lot of the K-12 funding, providing a ton of state and local autonomy and flexibility, right? Because we know that's also what has worked so well, for K-12.
Great, thank you so much. Rebecca, what are your thoughts on this? I would love to hear from your perspective, what has been the most promising federal investment?
The one thing I would add, is the child tax credit. I think I want to lift up the flexibility. I'm going to keep going back to the strobe light that we put on childcare and early education that my other panelists talked about. But I think it's important to just lift up the child tax credit, particularly as tens of thousands of families wait for the next and the potentially last payment on December 15th. Because without congressional action, the children and families can lose that benefit. And we've just started to see the positive effect from that benefit in terms of things like food insecurity. And to truly see a lasting difference for children and families, we have to include continue benefits like that. Putting on my implementer hat and my researcher of implementations hat, one of the biggest mistakes we make in policy is not giving policies the time that they take to make change and to take effect. And so to truly see the difference that these funds can have to really improve the future of children and their families, we need to continue them.
Great, thank you so much. I feel like in my reporting also, I've seen a lot more and reported a lot more on the federal investments. I haven't done as much on the state and local level. So I would love to hear from each of you, have there been any, promising policy changes or investments at the state or local levels that have improved the situation for childcare programs and early education programs? Sarah, maybe starting with you.
Yeah, no, I think I touched on this a little bit earlier. The national attention is obvious. We've talked a lot about it, but it is doing kind of what others have said. It is redirecting to go towards what's already been happening. We used to put out a annual look at the state of a state addresses, where governors across the board would articulate what their goals were for the year for early care and education. And it was tremendous, but it, didn't reach to the sustainability point, So I think whatever's been happening over time and growing exponentially over the course of the past decade or so, I think is really what's most impactful for, where we are now, and really trying to keep that autonomy, make sure it is unique and it is consistent with the way that the states and the communities are looking to do it or have been doing it for a long time, rather than upending it. It is a partnership in many respects. And so I guess my short answer is what's been happening up until now. Because I don't think that the federal government would be as, well, I don't want to say it that way, but I think that, obviously it makes it a little bit easier for the federal government to engage in this way, because there is a foundation that exists. It's not perfect. We've really done a good job of talking about that, but it's there, and now we're going to help build it up higher.
That's really helpful to hear. That's good framing for it. Rebecca, not to return to you too soon, but I would love to hear your thoughts on this. What have you seen at a state or local level?
back to this term of flexibility, because as you have dollars flowing from the feds down to the states and to local communities, one of the things that we know from the pandemic is that each population center is different. If it's urban, if it's tribal, if it's rural, if it's suburban, instead of the kind of one size fits all solution that sometimes comes with federal money, I think, and I'll say the beginning of flexibility, we definitely didn't see all the flexibility we needed and wanted, but that flexibility to allow a state to say, I want to focus on telehealth and early intervention. I'm seeing the numbers drop drastically in my state, so that making sure families receive the continued services for early intervention. And so a state could say, I'm going to take this money and invest here, while another state could say, I need to make sure we do stabilization payments for family child care. So that, I think, rather than saying a single investment, I think that flexibility and that autonomy, as local and state leaders know their population best and where they are in a continuum, because we know that we have, or 51 states that are in different places in their early learning journey and their implementation journey. And some people, kind of like Jenna, need something, very specific, because Virginia's been doing a lot of work under her guidance to push us forward. And then we have other states who are just beginning to think about what we need. In a state like Montana that isn't even providing even free public education for 4-year-olds. So.
Great, thank you. Safiyah, what have you seen in North Carolina or other states that you think has been helpful, either investment-wise, policy changes, flexibility?
Yeah, absolutely. In North Carolina, there's so much. We have really been focusing on using some of the, reducing our wait list, addressing parent copays and reducing the burden there. Thinking about the workforce with bonuses and pipeline programs. And as a panelist said earlier, really focusing from an equity perspective on family childcare homes, because too in North Carolina, we saw that they were the lion's share of programs that stayed open at the height of the pandemic. So really investing in family childcare homes. So we've seen a lot of those investments at our state level. And just recently, very excited to share that the most recent North Carolina budget has an additional $10 million for our Smart Start network. It's the first time in over a decade almost that we have seen an increase in investment. So we're really excited about that. And going down to the county level, we've seen counties like Randolph County or New Hanover County that are securing local art. So there are just a lot of, and in Randolph County, they're specifically thinking about supporting families as they navigate through and placing resource navigators in local libraries to really help parents find the resources from childcare, et cetera, to meet their needs. So I would say we've really been thinking about how to shore up and make sure that the programs stay open, that parents can afford to be there, and that family childcare homes is a specific part of our conversation in North Carolina in a way that has just been continuously growing over the past decade. And I can't wait till we come back and celebrate all the new things our local partnerships and our network is able to do with an additional $10 million. And other counties, I could name several of them whose county commissioners are right there at the table, taking the signal from the federal government, taking the signal from our state legislators, and really living in and stepping up with their local resources to build out a stronger system.
Great, thank you so much, Safiyah. Jenna, over to you. What's happening on this front in Virginia?
So I think we're incredibly fortunate in Virginia that we received the preschool development grant pre-pandemic and had really done some work to think through what we wanted to do and achieve as a state. As Rebecca noted, it was a fragmented system, and getting everybody to row the oars in the same direction took some work. And I should also note it's hard for states to move fast, right? Particularly when you think about implementation. And so while I'm excited to laud some of the work that Virginia has done, I will say that states like Virginia and North Carolina that have infrastructure in place, have a vision and a strategy in place, I think we're in a much better place in this pandemic to not only support the recovery, but also to do it in a way that has the end in mind, right? Is sort of working towards a sort of a more systemic approach rather than just putting a bunch of Band-Aids. And so, we obviously sort of done things to kind of get cash out to folks quickly, but we've continued to try to prioritize those in most need. And we know, for instance, that our subsidy program participation dropped by 43%. And so we're quickly able to get that data to elected officials and make some pretty big shifts, like making job search eligible for the first time, going up to the maximum income levels. And I think similarly, like just saying that a wait list is a sign of failed government. Like these are eligible folks we've offered the commitment to them, but not followed through. And now is the time to take action. In doing so, we realized we needed to reduce copays, right? Because otherwise these folks are contributing way too much, and childcare was then sort of not practical for them, right? Because it was not worth it, their sort of hourly wages versus the cost of care. So, we've also been able to really build out a regional infrastructure that is taken from sort of PDG year one to kind of slowly but surely scale across the state, right? And we're a medium-sized state, and are now then prepared to implement a uniform measurement and proven system that gets into every single one of our publicly funded classrooms, which we now have a count on. About 9,100 classrooms across the state. And that is, I think, always some of the challenge of our work is, we're at scale on paper, but because we never have enough funding, right? It happens to be sort of first come, first serve, who's most resources. And instead, we've really focused in Virginia on getting that landscape and that deep understanding of every last classroom we have, because every single one of those classrooms, whether in a family day home, Head Start, childcare, or school-based program, like there are vulnerable kids being served, and there are educators that we need to support and to help improve. And so that's been striking in the national conversations, Jackie, that the states that kind of had a direction and some kind of unification, I think have been able to sort of recover and move through this in a maybe more strategic way than some of our other states. And so it's like, how do you both thank folks for the investment, but also say, you can't just take a Band-Aid one-time funding approach to this. We have to build, as he was talking about the Smart Start, like we have to build systems that will last 30 years, right? And that will require big investments like that $10 million reinvestment that she just spoke to.
Great, thank you so much. This is also interesting to hear about what each of you have seen. So thank you for sharing. I think all of you have now mentioned the workforce, and I think it's a really important topic to return to. So I'd love to hear some thoughts about this. We've heard about the workforce crisis. I feel like there's an article every day published about this. We are all aware of how dire the situation is. What can be done to improve it? What are you all seeing, or what do you think might help beyond probably raising worker salaries, which we know is maybe one of the biggest problems? Rebecca, I'd love to start with you for this. And for timing, we may not go to each panelist, but yeah, Rebecca, I know that you have done a lot on this.
Yeah, I'm passionate about this, and we have to start with compensation. So, I mean, as I think about it, we have a retention and recruitment crisis caused by many things, but at the front of the line, it's the terrible wages and the lack of benefits for teachers. And we have to start there. The wages and benefits have to be in line with comparable positions. And that has to be at the top of our workforce priorities. Because if we can't do that, we won't be able to move forward. As I think about recruiting teachers, retaining teachers, I'm asking them to potentially stay in poverty, right? I just want to say that again. We're asking them to literally stay in poverty to continue to serve kids and families. And that can't happen if that can't continue. And so I think that's where we have to focus. And then the other piece kind of after that is that I've been spending a great deal of time thinking about is the training and support for teachers, both those who are in the system as well as those who we want to come into the system. As we know, everything's fragmented, and this is especially true for the training and professional development. For those of you on the call, I always think about, have you tried to navigate a state system to yourself for training or to support a teacher who's trying to obtain training and credentials to move up the ladder? And you have to ask yourself, is it easy to navigate? Is it easy to understand? Is it seamless? As you move from a CDA to an AA degree and a BA degree? What if you were a childcare teacher in Florida who wanted to move to Michigan to work? It's not easy. And in fact, I'd say it's impossible because each state has its own rules, its own regulations, its own registry system. And so as I think about those other areas that we have to invest in, we have to invest in this pipeline of teachers. We have to think about what investments the states themselves need to better support and train teachers, but we also need to think, is there some kind of investment that can be made to support national organizations like the Workforce Registry Alliance to simplify what is being done to this process? Because one of my biggest fears right now, literally, is that Build Back Better will pass and we won't have teachers to fill those classrooms.
Those are great points. I was taking notes as you wrote, because I think there are many important articles that should be written that haven't yet about that. Safiyah, over to you. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, ditto to Rebecca. Compensation is first and foremost. We can't ask folks to live in poverty and take care of our most vulnerable citizen, and that's our youngest. But I would, in addition to that, I want to bring in two other stakeholders, the entrepreneurs and the middle schoolers. How are we reaching folks who are ready to start their own businesses? If we want to maintain a mixed delivery system, we need owners and operators to hire the teachers, to open up their homes. How are we supporting those in current adults who are interested in leaving their field and transitioning and really starting and opening up a new school? We know that the K-12 has classrooms that, we need to think about how we bring young children into, but I think a lot about the entrepreneurs and the pipeline of folks that we need to even be able to hire the teachers. The second are the middle schoolers. We won't get this right until middle schoolers are saying, I just left early childhood experience and I want to do that. But naturally, middle schoolers are not thinking about like living in poverty. They're still like, I want to do more than what my parents did. So I just think a lot about as we move to solve the compensation and the recruitment and the training to bring on the adults who are ready right now into the field, how do we think back and really get more middle schoolers saying that they want to be early childhood professionals? Because when Build Back Better passes and sticks, we're going to need a whole pipeline of folks that go way back before high school in order to meet this need.
Safiyah, I love that. Have you seen any efforts or programs that are trying to introduce middle schoolers to the early childhood field?
Yes, we have one of our local partnerships in Cabarrus County is definitely doing a lot of this, starting earlier, reaching younger children. Yes.
Okay, that's fascinating. Thank you for sharing. It looks like we do have time. Jenna or Sarah, would you like to give your thoughts on this?
I'm going to pick up on that because I think apprenticeships is another place, and we've done a lot of work with a bipartisan group of members of Congress in both the House and Senate on that piece of it. I agree. Like, I couldn't agree more with that, like pipeline scenario, working with community colleges and getting super local on that as an economic driver as well. The only other thing I was going to add, just because if you want a statistic, we got it here and some talking points, but more than 108,000 childcare workers, or 1 in 10, have left the industry since the pandemic. opting for higher paying jobs in other industries, and forcing themselves out of an industry they deeply love and children they love. Average pay for childcare workers is $12.24 an hour, or $25,000 a year, which is the bottom 2% of all professions. There is language in Build Back Better to help address this, but looking downstream, thinking about what's to come, I think is so exciting, and really thinking about how to get it right. So.
Yeah, and Jackie, I just echo that. I think, we have 46 states that have figured out how to build QRISs. We have credentialing systems, as Rebecca described, across all of our states. We seem to be really good at leading with requirements. And instead what we need to be doing is focusing on, and you count how many states, you can probably count on two hands how many states pay teachers directly, right? Virginia, North Carolina, among those. But we are measuring turnover, 3 times a year down to the classroom level. And we found that giving somebody the equivalent of 75 cents more an hour, right? No credential required, no performance requirements, simply giving them a little bit more money, cut turnover in half. And every time I go to talk to folks, they're like, yeah, no, we got to fix compensation, but we got to fix it structurally first. But we don't have time for that, right? When you hear about what Sarah just described, we need to really charge folks to get money in teachers' hands now while building a long-term system that provides adequate compensation. But we are just stuck and not as creative as we should be in just getting these dollars in teachers' hands. So we now have 6,000 educators who receive $2,000 directly from the state of Virginia. Not what I got into this business to do, but if that's the thing that matters most for keeping teachers in classrooms so kids can get consistent relationships and learn and grow, then I'll do it. And I think we hope to continue to increase it, right? And I think even if we got to a place, would it be the worst thing in the world to give sort of $10,000 stipends? If it worked, not, right? And that might be a far better investment than all of the complex systems that we've built up over the last decade.
That's great, Jenna. Thank you so much for sharing. And Sarah, those stats are, very striking. Thank you for sharing those too. Another issue that we've all heard a lot about is, infant and toddler childcare shortages. I know I've spoken to a lot of center directors who say their infant classroom was the first to close. They're having trouble staffing them. They're the most expensive to run. So are there any, what are you all hearing about infant and toddler shortages? Are there any concerns about the ramifications of a pre-K ramp up? What is going on right now with that, specific subgroup of care? And I'll pass it to whoever wants to answer that first, whoever feels like they're most entrenched in the infant and toddler world.
I'll start with that one. While it's so exciting that Build Back Better and pre-K is part of a national conversation, one of my biggest concerns is that we will ramp up investments in 4 and 5-year-olds, and the national conversation and the investments that follow for infants and toddlers, the first 3 years will take a back seat. So I think that as we are really promoting teacher compensation, more classrooms, more accessibility for 4 and 5-year-olds, and maybe even 3-year-olds in some cases, where do we really bring in the conversation around the need for infants and toddler care? That was, as we started this conversation, a number of infant toddler deserts around the country prior to the pandemic. But as the entrepreneurs start to look at where dollars are coming from and where classrooms are, open or not, how do we support them in keeping infant toddler classrooms open, bringing in more? And also this intersection between family childcare or home-based childcare, there's a lot of research and studies to show that those are the best environments for our youngest learners. So how do we really build up the infrastructure of family childcare owners that can provide more and more infant toddler classrooms? Whether we're talking about 1 or 2 years old or 4 or 5, what we've talked about so far today still remains. Folks aren't, there's not enough compensation or incentive for professionals to get in the field. Questions about quality and setting remain, but I think that as we move forward, I'd really like us to, as a field, really tackle this more head on, this question of infants and toddlers, not just from their care and learning environments, but also those other supports, because our infant toddler timeframe is also the time where we can think most comprehensively about family support and home visiting programs. And we've seen a number across the state of North Carolina, a number of local partnerships and counties that are really bringing together these priorities of home-based childcare and infant toddler need for infant toddler programs.
Great, thank you so much, Safiyah. I'm going to move to the last question. So we have 2 questions submitted. I see one in the chat and one in Q&A that I want to get to. So to end on somewhat of a hopeful note, I'd love to hear, what are you each looking at with optimism, or what are you hopeful for when it comes to the future of early ed in this country? Jenna, maybe starting with you.
Sure, right. Your strength is your weakness and vice versa. But like, our strength is that we are, or our challenge, right, is that we're a market-based system. But it also means that like economics matter. So if you get the incentives right, whether that's the funds directly to teachers, whether that's how you set the rates for the child care subsidy program, whether that's how you think about, funding the system, like we just don't pay enough sort of attention to the dollars and cents. That's why we don't have enough infant toddler care. We fund it less than everybody else. If CCDBG required us just to get approval based on how much of our infant toddler we're at the market rate, we'd see a very different infant toddler landscape in the United States of America. So what makes me optimistic is I do think with money and with the entrepreneurialism that Safiyah mentioned, like we can build this system, right? And if you give us enough flexibility and we think about thoughtful ways for accountability to ensure return for investments, we think about measuring to ensure that we keep those kids and families centered, right, who are our most vulnerable and furthest from opportunity. Like, I think the system can move faster than others. If anything, we've seen the system move faster than everybody else in the last year. We just need resources, we need runway, and we need a long-term commitment.
Great, thank you, Jenna. Sarah, what about you? What are you most hopeful for?
Yeah, no, that's a perfect transition or jumping off point. I mean, I think I am so incredibly optimistic and hopeful for what's to come. I mean, I know it feels like a lot of rock bottom right now, but to everything Jenna said, I'm so hopeful that it's not the first step, but that the next step of passing and getting this money out there. We've never done this. We've never had a $400 billion birth through 5 investment in this country. It's going to be hard. It's going to take a lot of work, but it's the right thing to do. And there's so many brilliant people and dedicated people like all of you out there who are going to make this work and work well, that I'm really hopeful for that, and that it will end up at some point, hopefully, being that sustained commitment. And it's just the way it is. And God forbid we ever have another pandemic, families and providers are going to wonder if they're going to have some place to go the next week. So I don't know. I have nothing but optimism and hope for what's to come, but it's going to be hard, but I know we're all really in this together and making it work.
That's great. Thank you, Sarah. Rebecca, what about you?
Absolutely. I'll go back to where I started. The strobe light was placed on prenatal to 5, and we must leave it there until we come up with sustainable solutions for families and providers. Parents are talking about what they need. Systems are talking about what they need. Businesses are talking about what they need to support their workers. So we need to keep that attention on the crisis and not let it go. And then, as I said, we have to provide childcare staff wages and benefits commensurate with the important career they have. And then last, I would say we have to use this crisis to be innovative and solve the fragmented system that's in front of us.
Great, thank you. Safiyah, over to you.
Yes. I share the excitement. I Build Back Better, when it passes and those funds start flowing, there will be challenges, but it is just going to open up so much. It's planting the seed for a publicly funded system. And that's what I am excited about. Like, parents cannot pay for compensation and the full cost of care. Most parents, some parents can, but most parents cannot pay for the quality or the compensation of the workforce and the learning environments that we need. So I am really eager about the seeds being planted for a more publicly funded system that honors a mixed delivery system. I think that it's so important that we put that piece on there. So I'm excited for that. I'm also excited for the ability to do what Rebecca just said, add the prenatal to 5. Like, that is the part of the public discourse. This is not just about parents going off to work and children have a place to be. This is about supporting the most vulnerable part of brain development, the most important citizens, our youngest, in creating a strong foundation. So I'm excited that this seed for public funding will open up more conversation about prenatal to 5. And with that comes comprehensive services like home visiting and parenting education that are needed right alongside early care and education learning environments. And I'm excited for conversations like this. Thank you for hosting. The more and more that we can be in conversation, talk across state lines, and engage those outside of our field in these conversations, I'm just excited for the public discourse as well.
Great, thank you so much. So one of the questions we got in the Q&A, this is a question for Jenna. It says, I would be very interested in learning more from Jenna about the greatest challenges, threats, and so challenges/threats and opportunities/wins with regard to gaining bipartisan support for systemic solutions to early childhood issues.
Yeah, I think the most important thing, I think, is that we just have to not define ourselves as partisan, right? Regardless of your personal proclivities. And I think even as we're strategic, and I'm thinking about how to get folks thinking about Build Back Better in a state where some of the political winds have shifted in the last year. And I really I keep coming back, and I don't think K-12 is a perfect analog for our work, right? Because of some of the things I've talked about before, the brilliance of our public-private, much more nimble model. On the other hand, as I noted, after doing this work for more than a decade, like, it has a sort of a stability and a support from both sides of the aisle that, really sort of outlast, right? And it's this commitment to kids and this commitment to this education system that has become, right, we've talked about it as a public good. And so I think, one, we as a sector, we got to get better at 2 things. One, we got better at financing, be able to talk numbers and math, because so much of this, if it's market-based, is about the economics. And 2, we have to get more nimble at managing both sides of the aisle, right? And really thinking through how we communicate this in a way that is appealing. So if you're talking to a certain audience, the focus is on equity and opportunity. If you're talking to another audience, the focus is on accountability and choice. Often we have all of those things, right? And you can do the very same things, but really being astute to the politics, the thinking through how we frame this, who are your champions, what evidence do you need, and what is your messaging is critically important. And again, I think it's something that we say, we'll do that after, right? We've sort of run the center, done this. I watch year over year, sort of 2 takeaways from my work in Louisiana. One is we had a non-public preschool program that basically stayed alive for 1,600 kids because the nuns showed up each year to the Capitol. The nuns, right? The nuns from the private schools that ran the publicly funded pre-K. They advocated and they preserved the program, and it still exists today. The second was we had educators actually show up to advocate for the teacher tax credits. Louisiana remains one of the few states in the country that has tax credit for educators. It was that advocacy, with both sides of the aisle, both parties in the governor's office, that really mattered. And so we have very strong systems, I think, for that. As Sarah has described at the national level, I don't think we have the strength we need at the regional and local level. And as we're going to need local dollars. We didn't talk about that all today, but like our K-12 system as local skin in the game, local leadership, local governance, and local dollars. And that's the kind of thing, but we have to keep in mind, we can never attach our fate to one particular party. We have to be bipartisan. We have to do the work, even for the folks who might not be our obvious champions, but there's got to be a way in. And K-12 has lasted for whatever amount of billions and trillions of dollars because we figured out how to have both parties own it, believe in it. They would handle it differently. We all know that. But nobody wants to dismantle it. And I think we need to get to that same place with early childhood.
Great, thank you so much. I would love to get to other questions, but I want to be respectful of everyone's time. So I'm going to end us there, but there are some great questions in the chat, and I would encourage, if the panelists are open to it, if any of those of you watching want to follow up and ask your questions, I'm sure you all would be willing, hopefully if you have time, to respond and share your thoughts. Also maybe on Twitter or another avenue where they can reach you. Thank you so much to everyone for joining. This was a wonderful conversation. Thank you to our panelists. I learned so much from all of you, and I'm sure that all of our attendees did as well. And thank you, Whiteboard, for hosting this. Thank you, everyone. Oh, do they have, if you all want to share your email or Twitter, if you're whatever you're comfortable with in the chat, feel free to do so. And this will, maybe Whiteboard will publish this as well or share it. This was also recorded, so you can come back to revisit the conversation. All right, I'm seeing this. Great. All right, thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much, Jackie. Thank you so much, Anna. We so
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care.
Bye.